Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 11th conversation on agroecology from the Agroecology Partnership. On this conversation, we will hear what monitoring agroecological transition entails from theory to practice. I'm Taru Sandén, and along with my colleague Julia Forra-Fellner, I'm pleased to moderate today's conversation. We are both coming from the Austrian Agency for Health and Food Safety. Julia will also be writing a summary of the conversation that you will later on find on the webpage. And our colleague, also from 𝐂𝐨𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐧𝐠, Katrin Buchinger, will be taking care of the technical aspects throughout the conversation. So she's available in case you have any technical issues, both for the speakers and for anyone in the audience. At this point in time, Agroecology Partnership most likely starts to be known for most of you. But in case we have some newcomers in the audience, just a quick summary of what the partnership is about. So this partnership is titled Accelerating Farming Systems Transition, Agroecology Living Labs and Research Infrastructures. So how living labs and research infrastructures can enable our transition towards agroecology. It's a collaborative research and innovation initiative that involves the European Commission and 26 member states, associated countries and third countries, with a total of 72 partners. So quite a large undertaking. And the reason why we are doing these conversations is that we want to take steps to enhance agricultural knowledge and innovation systems throughout Europe in order to enable agroecological transition. These conversations aim to foster connections between living labs and research infrastructures actors throughout Europe. So anybody who is involved in a living lab, in a research infrastructure, or very, very interested in those are very welcome to join and take actively part. We organize this monthly throughout the 7-year partnership and thereby we'll try to do our best to engage and network actors that are passionate about agroecology. Today, we have 2 presentations. The first one will be by Anne van Doorn from Wageningen. That goes through the theoretical framework of monitoring agroecological transition as we see it in the partnership. Our second speaker, Alfred Grand from Austria, will give you the lenses of a farmer and highlight the role of earthworms in this transition. After these 2 talks, you will have the opportunity to join the discussion and ask questions from both of the speakers. Before I will give the floor to Anna, just a couple of play rules that we have in the conversations. In order to have a good technical quality throughout the conversation, please keep your microphones muted when not speaking and your camera closed unless you have a very good connection. Feel free to join the conversation by speaking up after the talks or by using the chat. So you can at any time post your question in the chat and we will then pick them up after the talks. We respect everyone's opinions and please try to keep your questions short and simple so it will be easy for the speakers also to respond. And any comments and ideas are very welcome. Please feel free to share them in the chat throughout the conversation. This conversation will also be recorded. I think you have already clicked OK. In case someone has objections, you can say it now. I hear no objections. Thank you. We are good to go. And without further ado, I'd like to hand the floor over to Anne van Doorn. Anne, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will share my screen. Thank you for the opportunity to tell a little bit about our work. As in the announcement, Yeah, in the announcement, we say it is a sneak preview of the first building blocks of our monitoring framework, and that is what it is. Do you see my screen now or not?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay, because I don't. Yeah, you see the first slide of my presentation now.
Yes, it's working well.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to also to present our findings to a broader public and to receive some feedback. So thank you for the opportunity. We do this work at Wageningen Research, but also at other institutes are involved. So we formed a core team of Task 5.3, LifeWatch Eric, 𝐜𝐨𝐬𝐬, 𝐸, 𝐳 and 𝐸. So yeah, this is a presentation of a joint work process. Well, our work is part of work package 5 of the European Partnership, the work package on monitoring the transition to agroecology. I think 1 or 2 conversations before this one, there was a presentation on the conceptual framework. This was task 5.2, presented by Eliana Icola from 𝐸𝐿𝐻, the Italian Institute. And this presentation today is about task 5.3. So it is this one, developing methods and indicators to monitor agroecological transition. Yeah, there are more tasks in the work package. I won't go into that in detail, but I think it is important to know that one part of the work package is about monitoring the partnership and the projects in the partnership, and one part, and especially 5.3, is also about monitoring also what goes on beyond the partnership. So I think that's important to know. Yeah, before diving into our methodology and in the content, I think it is good to know or to have in mind what are actually the expectations of the European Commission. Oh, sorry, there's an error here. Of the European Commission, of the partnership itself, but also of the monitoring, and what we foresee as the added value of what the work we are doing in work package 5. So the Commission, they really wanted a better structured research and innovation for agroecology. They really want evidence and measuring the performance and impact of agroecology, and a better cooperation between scientists, practitioners, and policymakers. So this is, I think it is important that we, as people working in a partnership, we know that these expectations exist. And we think that the work we are doing in work package 5 has this added value of, because many monitoring frameworks for agroecology exist already, but what we try to do in work package 5, we create an overview and some guidance of when you can use which framework. And so for some context, there is no monitoring approach yet, so we will develop that one. So the work package, the monitoring framework will deal with multiple levels, with multiple system boundaries and multiple end users. And we will not do it in an individual way, but also in a coherent one. So what you see now is multiple frameworks exist, but for a certain end user or for a certain system, and we try to create this overview across multiple levels, system boundaries, and end users. So what we try to develop is a monitoring framework that is adaptable across different contexts, and each one fits into this overarching framework. So the objective of task 5.3 is actually operationalizing the conceptual framework, which is developed in task 5.2. So what we try to do is develop methods and indicators to actually monitor all the relevant themes and topics that have been highlighted in the conceptual framework. And we have to, by doing this, we have to take into account the the existing methods and frameworks and tools that are already used, but also across different spatial scales, different temporal scales, the different system boundaries, because you can monitor a farm, you can monitor a product, you can monitor a watershed, you can monitor a region, also monitoring across the whole EU. How is agroecology developing across the EU? Could also be a system boundaries, and for different end users. This picture I took from another project, which is the Soil Health Benchmarks project. I really want such a kind of picture for, for the partnership as well, but we are not that far yet. But this picture explains a little bit what I mean with various end users, different spatial scales and different system boundaries. Well, I think you can guess this is all quite complex. And the approach we developed, we think we can deal with this complexity. I will explain shortly. What we did last year, the 5.3 started last summer of 2024. And what we did is we did a literature study on the role of monitoring in agroecology, on existing frameworks to monitor agroecology. And we set up a glossary with common terminology, because with such a lot of different nationalities and disciplines, you think you talk about the same stuff, but we thought it is good to have a glossary so everybody knows the commonly used terms. Then we mapped existing frameworks and tools. So we compiled a database and we did an analysis of which skills the existing frameworks and tools are applied, which aspects are included, and the ontology of the frameworks itself. Then there were some expert workshops in October, November last year. And we asked the experts what they think are the challenges and opportunities when it comes to monitor agri-environmental, economic, and social cultural aspects. And then with all this information, we started to build the framework to operationalize the monitoring. And for this one, 3 types of monitoring were quite central. I will come back to that. We used a recent publication of Lamana that presents a stepwise approach to monitoring. And we use the concept of monitoring settings to focus and reduce complexity. I will explain later. So these 3 types of monitoring, I put them together in a figure. It's also not perfect yet. We really need a professional designer to make this beautiful. But here you can see that we distinguish 3 types of monitoring. That's the integration of agroecological principles. So how agroecological is a farm or a region or a policy. Then on this axis, it's the sustainability, performance, and impact. How well is the performance on biodiversity recovery or climate neutrality or whatever. And then the process, how to agroecological transition, that can be a rough and bumpy road. And this is the 3rd type of monitoring, how the process of agroecological transition will go. So these are our 3 types of monitoring. And in our framework, this is also quite central to the conceptual framework Ileana presented some conversations ago. So this is the agroecologicalness, the impact and performance on sustainability, and the process of the transition, which are quite central in the conceptual framework. And for each type, the conceptual framework identifies the relevant themes and topics for that type of monitoring. Well, for task 5.3, we have the assignment, we have to operationalize it. But as you can imagine, that if we have to to operationalize it for different end users across different spatial scales and for different system boundaries, it gets very complex. So what we thought is we cannot come up with one monitoring approach. We have to develop several. And that's what you see here. So we will develop several monitoring plans for specific settings, and we call these monitoring settings. So for a setting X, a setting Y, and a setting Z. And for each setting, we will use the themes and topics identified by the conceptual framework, maybe all of them, maybe a subset, we don't know yet. And if we know on which themes and topics we have to focus, then we can identify the tools and the indicators to monitor. So this is basically our approach. It's to operationalize the conceptual framework. We do this by using the publication of La Manna of 2023, which presented actually a really clear stepwise approach to monitoring, which is in 3 different phases. It's the defining phase, scoping, and implementing. We adapted it a little bit for our purposes. And with defining, you define really clear your system boundary, the reason why you want to monitor, and the end user, which is going to reuse the end results. Then the scoping, to identify the theoretical basis and what matters to measure. So you really focus on what you really want to monitor. And then the implementation phase, this is all about indicators, data collection, organizing, and presenting your results. So we found this a really useful framework for our work. So how this fits together, here you see the figure I showed before, and this is the La Manna framework. So the defining phase we use to define our monitoring settings. So these broad categories where we cluster our monitoring efforts. Then the second phase, the scoping phase, it is exactly which themes and topics we have to address from the conceptual framework we have to address for this specific setting. And the implementation phase, that's the last phase where the selection of indicators and tools will take place. So this is how they fit together. And of course, there are some iterative steps, because maybe you will identify the theme and an indicator, but then in the end, there are no data. So then you have to go back to define what matters to measure. But in a way, this is these are the steps we want to take. Then something about the first phase we are in right now, defining these monitoring settings. It is actually the first 3 steps of the La Manna approach. What we really want to identify is broad categories of the spatial scale and the entity we want to, which you can group together, and that can be monitored with a similar approach. That's the essence of a monitoring setting. So if you see the whole of Europe as an agroecological system, it is too big and too complex to monitor at once. So you have to find some kind of clustering approach, to be able to develop useful monitoring plans. And that's what we do here in box 2, with the scale, with the entity, the purpose, and the end user. We have this, you can identify what is the relevant spatial scale, what is the entity, together they form the system boundaries, what is the purpose I want to monitor for, and what is the end user. And in the end, if you identify those, then you have these monitoring settings. They are not necessarily geographical. They can also be in a different dimension, but this was for now the moment to visualize. And they serve as a cookie cutter for our monitoring approaches. So some of the cases we want to monitor, they are clustered together under this broad category. I hope this is clear.
And it's just
so, for example,
a note, you have 1 more minute?
Yeah, this is my 4 last slides. So for example, you have an entity is the farm. the spatial scale is the micro level. The end user is a farmer. The purpose is you want to track the principles to help the farmer to meet their goals. And so this can be a monitoring setting on micro level with the entity is a farm. And then there's another example, but because of the time, I will skip this one. So what we now have, we have a list of spatial scales. We have a list of entities, a list of end users and purposes, and combining those, for example, the spatial scale of the EU with farms, all farms in the EU, with the end user of policymakers, you can compose monitoring settings. And then for that monitoring setting, we will make an action plan. I don't know yet how many monitoring settings we will create, but yeah, this is the way to go forward. Now, at the moment, we are exactly in this phase of identification of monitoring settings and to prioritize. And we want to start with 5 monitoring settings. And in the second half of 2025, for each of these identified priority monitoring settings that have priority, we will set up a monitoring action plan. So, and that's our way to deal with this complexity of monitoring agroecology in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Very interesting to see the whole framework, a very complex system.
Yeah, but we try to reduce the complexity.
Yes, and I know this is not an easy task.
No.
We have some question already in the chat, but we will move now directly to Alfred, and then we will open the questions after Alfred's talk to both of you. And to give a farmer's point of view of monitoring, I would now like to invite Alfred Grand from Austria to give his perspective on monitoring transition to agroecology. You're welcome, Alfred. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here, and welcome from my side. I try to share my screen. Okay. Should work. Okay. Yeah, do you see my first slide?
Yes, it's working well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Monitoring the Earthworm Effect from a Farmer's Perspective. I was asked to tell about the monitoring on our lighthouse farms. And so I thought, because I'm an earthworm fanboy, I take the specific topic of earthworms and tell you a little bit how we monitor the earthworms activity, the impact of the earthworms on our farm and on our activity. So I always consider myself trained by earthworm, because on one side I was never able to attend a university, so I didn't study. I'm not trained by university, definitely. But on the other side, I also tried to understand the work of the earthworm, understand the life of the earthworm, think a little bit like earthworms, to support them as much as possible, because I think it's really important for the agroecological transfer. So what do? We are Grand Farm, which is an arable field farm, 90 hectare. We are based in Austria, about 30 kilometers northwest of Vienna. We do a lot of research already on the farm. So like you see, we are also conducting research on the roller crimper method. We are an organic farm. We are organic certified. We are Austria certified. We are ROC certified, so regenerative organic certified as well. And beside of productivity, beside of being a production farm growing food, we also are a research and demonstration farm, because we conduct cooperations and research projects together with scientists, advisors, NGOs, and so on for the last 20 years maybe. We also have a second company. This is where everything started. It's 𝐬𝐤𝐺𝐻 Naturprodukte. And vermigrant is, when I was young, when I was coming out of the winemaker school, I started composting, thermophilic composting, and soon after vermicomposting. And this is really where my journey started in becoming interested in soil health, agroecology, regenerative farming, and so on. There we produce vermicompost, the compost that is made by the earthworms. Why is that important? Why earthworms? Because we as humans, we cannot make soil. I always say we can fly to the moon, sometimes at least. That's not possible for earthworms, but earthworms can make soil and we don't. And when I say earthworms, I mean also the whole community of life in the soil, including roots and so on. So the earthworms are more or less also a kind of testimonial for healthy soils. We also have a market garden, so we grow vegetable and herbs on small scale, and we also conduct a lot of research there. And so how do we as farmers monitor the earthworm effect? So a big inspiration in monitoring science or the activities in the soil on the farm was coming from Charles Darwin, actually. I read his book about the formation of vegetable mold through the action of worms. This was his last book, and it was his, as he quoted, his most important book. And when you read through this book, you realize how much you can find out without having a sophisticated lab equipment and a DNA lab or whatever. Because he, at that time, he just had like a scale, a ruler, his eyes, a notepad where he can write things down and measure and count things. So this was really an inspiration for me. And now what we do most often is we look at things. We really try to observe, try to see things going on. And one of the things, just as an example, is when you look at the subsoil, because we always have a soil pit open for our demonstration activity. And when you look at this picture, it shows an earthworm burrow from an egg earthworm, which is coated with earthworm compost. Therefore, the dark soil is the earthworm compost, which follows more or less vertically. And then on the left and on the right side, you see the subsoil. And what you can see immediately on the pictures is within the subsoil, there are no roots, but all the roots follow the earthworm burrow. So then I do not have to have a lot of scientific studies, but I can see with my naked eyes that plant roots and earthworm burrows connect easily together. Why is that the case? Because the roots follow the earthworm burrows, they have more room to grow, they have the earthworm compost, the vermicompost, which contains nutrients, which contains phytohormones like auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin. It contains all the microbes which act as a toolbox for the root plants, and fulvic acids and all that stuff that the plant can use for growing things. So very easy to monitor. And if you take a look down here, you can see that the roots really benefit from the activity of the earthworms. They grow in the earthworm burrows. They shoot out a lot of root hairs maybe because of the existence of phytohormones, auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, things like that. Okay, so what I always also do is when I see things, I try to record it immediately. And here I saw on the right side, there is no water standing. On the left side, there is a lot of water standing. So what is the reason? Did it only rain on the left side? Probably not. But what we found out in this example is that the earthworms provide the water infiltration through the burrows that they create. And I could even tell a bit longer story because the soil actually was frozen on both fields. And that was the reason why the water is melted snow, couldn't go in. But maybe that takes too long, maybe after in the discussion. Another example, here you see very short video on the right side after a quick thunderstorms, 30 millimeter of rain. On the right side, the water is standing. On the left side, the water disappeared immediately. Also, activity from the earthworms. Next example, here on the left picture, you see how a soybean crop, a successful soybean crop looks like. And just look how many leaves you see, how much biomass of leaves you can see. If you look now on the right video, this is just before harvesting, you can see nearly all the leaves disappeared. Just there are small heaps with leaves, and with below every single heap, there is an earthworm burrow, and you can immediately see. I will take it away. And yes, thank you, Mr. Grant. Take it away, and you can see there is a hole, an earthworm burrow just below. And now, what's funny, you can see a small earthworm where my finger is, a small earthworm appearing. But this is definitely not the earthworm burrow of these small baby earthworms, but this guy is stealing food from the adult earthworm. Fun fact. Okay, next picture. Also monitoring. I was walking my dog in the night, the first warm night in spring after a rainfall. This is earthworm party night, season start. And look how many earthworms you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 earthworms in 11 seconds. So that's also the action of no-till. We just trimmed that straw down, put a cover crop in, and then you see how you can promote earthworms. Another example, when we digged a pit, a soil pit, to show it in our demonstration activity, and what we saw is that we have a much deeper topsoil area on the right side of our soil pit, and on the left side, which was only 3 meters apart, we saw, okay, this is different. Yeah? And the reason, at least we think this is the reason, is because on the right side, we applied mulch, lucerne mulch for 4 years. And we think that then we supported the earthworms, supported the earthworm activity. And the earthworm then, especially the anaic earthworms, they incorporate the organic lucerne straw, lucerne hay, and bring it into the deep, and therefore deepen the topsoil layer. Like you can see on the left side, this is like 30 centimeter, and here you can see it's 40 to 45 centimeter deep, and that's just after 4 years. And now with a benchmark project, we try to evaluate if this is really the reason why the soil is so different within 3 meter distance. I talked about lucerne mulch, so this is also important. Look, just with your eyes, you can see the difference. There is one row, the left row, which was supported with lucerne mulch, lucerne hay, chopped down to 3 centimeter. And the right row was supported with hemp straw, which has a different carbon-nitrogen ratio. Again, with your naked eye, you can see a huge difference. So when we see all the benefits that the earthworms provide to us, then we like to add and see if we can really see a difference also and have an impact in practice when we use the earthworm compost, like for seed coating. And here you can see there are big differences for different treatments. We also, on the research farm, we initiate projects like vermicomposting of biochar. You can see the deeper you go down with 15% biochar composted with earthworms, you have much more biomass than without earthworms and without biochar. We do seed coating with students on the farm, and you see the difference. When you do seed coating, you have earlier germination, better juice development. Just look, the first the row on the top is cover crop mix, and if you look, the weed is very little, but my crop is already very nice. Quick, just a minute from now. We do seed treatments based on the versatile vermicompost microbiome together with Technical University Graz. Big shout out to Gabriele Berg and her team. And what we see is that when we use the vermicompost microbiome of the vermicompost, we see a much better germination. So in the first row, and then as well root health and shoot health. We see with the vermicompost first line, we see a very good healthy growth. And here as well, we see significant differences in the length of the shoots and the roots, and with the vermicompost. Okay, so that's it. That's how we try to monitor, try to make it very easy, very without heavy equipment, and then we asked our scientific community to help us do more research, in-depth research, and to have the scientific evidence about the effect of the earthworms. Okay, so I try to.
Thank you very much, Alfred. Very interesting to get your point of view. Thank you. And our questions have already started in the chat. I have also seen that Anne has already been active in answering some of the questions. We can first go through a couple of questions for Anne, and then we move for questions for Alfred. Please, as I said before, please feel free to raise your hand and speak up, or if you prefer, you can also write your question in the chat. I first of all saw there was some question from 𝐬𝐈KUT of a particular slide and terminology. This was already solved in the chat, right?
Yeah, it was that we focus. Well, I think that was one of our slides. We focus on EU, European Union, while there are also member states and regions outside European Union. So we will use Europe instead of European Union. Yeah, so that's solved.
Okay. Then I also saw a question from Susanne Kummer about the tape tool and how this can be connected to the monitoring framework that is being developed.
Yeah, I think my colleague 𝐂𝐨𝐻𝐸 already answered, but yeah, so you can imagine that one of our monitoring settings will be spatial scale micro with the system boundary will be the farm, and for that purpose, the tape tool might be perfectly okay to use. So we will not, in that case, we will not develop a new tool, but then we say for this monitoring setting, a tool already exists, and please use this one. But you can maybe for other monitoring settings, for example, on a European level, we don't have anything, and we really have to develop something. So existing tools might perfectly fit into what we identify as monitoring settings, and then we will guide the end user to that particular tool.
Thank you. So as said, it will be a flexible framework where different scales can be looked into.
Yeah, so I think you can more see it as a toolbox, guidance to a toolbox, than that we really are developing new tools.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. I also saw a question from Luis Duarte about a publication. So the framework is want it very much. I saw there was a comment already in the chat that there is a deliverable being developed. Anne, would you be able to say something about when it will be open for the public to read?
Yeah, that's always a difficult question. Yeah, now it's out to the partners of Work Package 5, depending on the amount of comments they have. We will have to do a major or a minor revision. And if that's, yeah, I also have to discuss this, of course, with the Work Package lead, José. But within the partnership, it will, yeah, I think it will be over summer. We can send it around for everybody.
Okay, that's very nice. I think there might be quite a lot of people in the audience who would be happy to read through that.
Yeah.
And I also saw in the chat that there is a comment from Viviane Filippi with a link to another project, Holistic Performance Metrics. So if you are interested, please do have a look. It's quite useful to have a look at several different projects and metrics because, of course, they share a lot, but you also get quite a lot of inspiration. Julia, would you like to take questions for Alfred?
Yes, I just had one. Yeah, I found it again. So, Alfred, out of the treatments you have used, which one is the best and most suitable one to maintain both cell fertility and crop production, in your opinion?
Well, I'm a big fan of nature-based solutions, as we call it, or as many people call it. And but what strikes out the most is on one side compost and vermicompost application, even only if it's a seed treatment, for example, seed coating. But on the other side, especially for market gardening, where you can apply it, is mulch. And because this really performs very well in when you consider crop yield, but also the health of your plants. And on the other side, it supports the soil, it supports the earthworms, and it's not an available nutrient that you deliver, but it has to be slowly incorporated in the soil, slowly released. And we were running an operational group in market gardening, and there we tested the lucerne mulch versus the hemp straw. And we had initial soil testing at the beginning, and then after 3 years again, and we could increase the organic matter drastically, like from 5.1% to 7.6 or something like that. So that was even worrying crazy in my opinion already.
Yeah.
The lab guy says, no, you don't have to be worried so much. But we are now considering to mix the lucerne, the hay, with some wheat straw to widen the carbon-nitrogen ratio a bit, to slow down the incorporation of through the earthworms, because the earthworms, they just love it, and they just pull it in the soil and make the soil more and more fertile. And we are a bit worried, okay, what will happen if we do this for 10 years or so? And so we are now trying to reduce the input a bit. But the amazing thing that we can, and we have a study that I didn't show, because it was already so long, the presentation. A study that I didn't show is a master thesis from Boko, where they measured the protists in the soil, so the microbes that feed on the bacteria and on the fungi. And this was super interesting because they compared arable fields from my neighbor to our regenerative farm. So we had significantly higher amounts of higher numbers on protists, and also significantly higher diversity. And then they compared this field with the market garden field, so with the soil in the market garden, which was again significantly higher in numbers and biodiversity. And then they compared the market garden to an area in our field which wasn't touched for 40 years. So there was no tillage, there was no soil, no plant protection, there was no fertilization there. And there was no more increase in protist numbers and protist biodiversity. So what I conclude from there is that we can say, okay, we can have a super productive system, like in market gardening, where we grow really big yields, but at the same time, we can regenerate the soil to a maximum, like a soil that is never, or it wasn't touched for 40 years. So I think this is really, because that's always a bit the problem that we face as organic farmers, as agroecological farmers. Then conventional farmers say, yeah, but you don't grow a lot of yield, and we feed the world, and you don't, you feed only the butterflies. But now with this system, we can say, yeah, we regenerate the soil, but at the same time, we grow high amounts of high quality food without pesticides, without mineral fertilizer, without contaminating the groundwater, without contaminating the air, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the long
answer. It's okay, thank you. Taro, can I follow up with one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Alfred, because I was curious, did you come up with this idea of coating the seeds with the vermicompost? And how do you do this? Do you do this yourself, or do you cooperate with some kind of company that does this?
No, I came up with it because we grow soybeans as well, and one year we didn't have enough inoculum, because you need a specific inoculum to fix the nitrogen with the soybeans, because these kind of bacteria are not available in European soils. So we always have to inoculate the soybeans with these bacteria. We didn't have enough of inoculum, so we ended up with the last 3 rows on a field without inoculum. And I thought, okay, yeah, there will be not a big difference, but the difference was huge. So the plants were really yellow and like 30 centimeter high, and beside it was like 1 meter high and green. And so I thought, okay, if I can incorporate microbes down to 25, 30 centimeter depth within a season, by just coating the seed with this specific inoculum, then why can't I do it with all the biodiversity that the vermicompost provides in tens of thousands of different bacteria species, thousands of different fungi, and so on. So this is where we started to do experiment on that, and it's done super easy, super simple. The only issue is that you have to do it fresh on the farm, and it slows down a little bit the drilling process. So what we are now doing, we are working together with Technical University Graz in Austria to make a formulation where we can already apply the seed coating in the bagging station. So the farmers can buy the seed already coated with an agent on it, which keeps the shelf life of the microbes for months. And then you can apply it without having all the preparations before seeding.
I see. Okay. Taro, would you like to continue?
Yeah, I see still a couple of questions in the chat, but we also have hand raised. So please, Gerhard Moitzi.
Yeah, do you understand me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Mr. Grant, thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I want to discuss with you the power of the earthworm in the field of recovery of soil compaction. You have demonstrated the 2 fields where there one field with earthworms, no water, was flooded. The other field there was soil compaction maybe. And now, what do you think? Is the earthworm, to which degree of soil compaction the earthworm can make a natural recovery? Do you have experience? And I think I have looked for literature and I found there is only one bar pressure axial and 2 bar radial pressure. But what do you think? Also, you know, this is a great problem, the technically induced soil compaction. And is it possible to recover the soil with earthworms?
Well,
Thank you.
I'm not sure. Thank you for the question. I'm not sure if we really can recover a compacted soil with earthworms, even if they can really drill
Yeah.
kind of through compacted areas and even like compacted areas because the earthworm burrow doesn't collapse so easy
Yeah.
when the rain comes in. But it's only on certain areas and doesn't make the soil compaction of the complete volume of the soil. So it's only certain holes, and there the roots can go down easily, but it doesn't recover all the volume of the soil really. But the reason why that worked in this frozen soil was really because first I thought, okay, my soil, there was it was in February. I thought, okay, there is some rye on my cover crop field, and it already started to shoot the root exudates. The soil is already warmer. It's no longer frozen. And I went out with the spade, but the soil still was frozen. And I thought, okay, the earthworms, they dig these vertical burrows, and therefore the water can infiltrate. But when the surrounding soil has like -5 degrees, and the melting water from the snow has 0 degrees, and it goes in, it would immediately freeze, and then it would clog the earthworm burrow as well. So I was really questioning my theory. But then I found out that when the earthworm goes down like 1.5 to 2.5 meter, and below it's like 6, 7, 8 degrees Celsius, then the earthworm burrow acts like a chimney. So the warm air from the deep ground comes through the earthworm burrow on the surface. So it's like a heating system for the earthworm burrow, and that's the reason why it doesn't freeze. And I checked it, and you can test it yourself. When in winter, when the soil on the surface is really dry, you just remove some of these straw stars, so the earthworm burrow is really open, and then you put some shade before the earthworm burrow, so the sun cannot penetrate it. And when it's cold, you can see that ice crystals are forming on the surface of the earthworm burrow. So the warm steam like the warm moist air comes out, and then it freezes on the surface. And this is the proof that this acts really like a chimney. It's really crazy, but it's fantastic.
Well, that is very nice to hear. I will think about it next time I go to the sauna.
Thank you.
We still have 2 questions for Alfred. And after that, I would also like to ask if Alfred has a question for Anne, or if Anne has a question for Alfred, based on your talks. But Emmanuel Cario is asking, Alfred, did you see also the earthworm eat the crop pre-harvesting it when, for example, it fall down? This has been seen on a flax crop in the north of France. And his second question is, did you try to combine coated treatment with mycorrhiza?
Well, we did not try to combine coated treatment with mycorrhiza, but what I know from some scientific literature is the combination of earthworms and mycorrhizal supports each other. So that was done with a study where they have seen they measured the amount of phosphorus in maize, in corn plants, either just grown normally as a control, and then with earthworms, and then with mycorrhiza, and then with mycorrhiza and earthworms. And there they had the highest, at the end, with mycorrhiza and earthworms, they had the highest phosphorus level in the corn plants. So it really supports each other. And but would be definitely interesting. Yeah. Also maybe put some nutrients in or some micronutrients or something like that. I didn't really understand the first question, to be honest.
I think maybe Emmanuel, if you are still here, would you like to explain the question?
Yeah, well, in fact, just remarks. I was a breeder for flax a long time ago, and we saw in the north of France, because flax is also an industrial plant, you know, we use the fiber to make clothes. It enters an industrial process. The region is more on the north of France and Belgium and the Netherlands, and it's really relevant to this area. Not more than that, only for fibers. I'm not speaking about oilseed. But in that case, when you harvest the flax, you put it on the ground to make it rating.
Okay.
That's a very specific process, and you let it, I mean, somehow like 3 weeks on the ground.
Okay. Same
and
like
the rating is a process of a combined fungi and bacteria on the plant itself, and it helps to extract the fiber afterwards in the industrial process. And we saw that some of fields get this problem, because it was, in fact, yes, we had a very, well, organic matter, which was quite level, a high level in the soil. And at the same time, we had this earthworm, and we thought that it was, well, the farmers thought that they were eating the flax itself.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The masses of earth, you know, on the surface of the flax landed on the soil. It was quite strange. But in fact, the farmer probably lose part of its yield.
Yeah, and they also put in the seeds or only the leaves?
No, it was naturally. The seeds were not coated at all.
No. The seed was also lost or only the leaves?
The seeds, I don't remember. No, only the fibers, I think.
Yeah.
Because the seeds, you know, it's not so important on flax.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a natural process, because the earthworms are hungry. They say, yeah, okay, everything, because everything that dies falls on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah? In this case, you pushed it to the ground, but for the earthworm, it's the same. It's okay, now it's dead, I can eat it. So they were hungry. That's the reason.
Okay.
And it might have been moist or something like that, so they can. But as you have seen on my soybean video, no? It's crazy how much performance. So how much you can understand how much leaves there are, how much biomass of the leaves are per hectare, and within when the leaves start to drop on the soil till harvesting, it's like maybe 4 or 5 weeks, and within these 4 or 5 weeks they consume nearly all the leaves. It's crazy.
Okay.
It's a huge performance.
Yeah. So I understand why. Okay, so this is relevant for some crops, but maybe not for all.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. I think to round up our nice discussion, I would still like to ask if the speakers have questions to one another. Alfred, is there something you are wondering about the monitoring framework? Some specific questions from the perspective of a farmer?
No, not really. My compliment to the complex work that you do, Anne. So I'm always happy that farmers have such an easy job only to just look at the things and recognize things, and then are happy to demonstrate and show this to other people as well. But your work is much more complex and much more serious.
Well, I'm open to swap for a day. I have a question for you, Alfred. What would be your super tip, number one tip when we start to develop these monitoring approaches on farm level, and we are supposed also to do a co-creation process. So what would be your super tip to do this together with farmers?
Yeah,
to
number
start the
one
co-creating process.
tip is do it together with farmers. Make sure they are heard in their opinion, and try to motivate farmers to speak out what they think, what is useful and what has an impact on their farm specifically. And because farmers are still too shy to say, okay, the scientists, they know exactly what to do and what to look for, and often too shy to say, okay, but this is the thing that where I have the most interest in, or where I see the biggest impact. So motivate the farmers to talk about their interest and the impact that they want to see on the farm.
Okay, yeah, thanks, clear.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think this was a very nice question and a very nice response to round up the discussion that we have had today. Emmanuel is asking whether it's okay to get the emails of the speakers. Anne and Alfred, is it okay for you if I send your email addresses?
Yeah, it's in my presentation anyway.
Yes, so, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and Alfred's email is already there. So Emmanuel, please feel free to contact both of the speakers. I would like to share a very big thank you for both of our excellent speakers. Very exciting insights into monitoring, both as a bigger framework and how it indeed looks in the field when we are going through the landscape. A big thank you for Julia and Katrin for organizing the conversation, and for the whole task group 7.1 for planning these conversations. Thank you very much for the audience for being here. It's not without you that we could do these conversations. And in a month, we will have the 12th conversation on the 25th of June. We will meet again, and this will be the last one before our summer break. So please make sure to be there. In case you have some burning ideas for topics, for speakers, please feel free to share them by sending us an email. Or if you have a colleague or a friend who would like to be on the email list, please feel free to share that, and we will include new people on the email list. It will be one email per month where these conversations are being announced. And with this, thank you very much for today. Have a nice afternoon, and looking forward to seeing you in 1 month. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Good afternoon.